So we're doing a little water change on the Betta hendra setup. This was the mixed species tank. I decided to take the channoides out for the simple fact that not only were they preying on their own fry, but they were definitely decimating the hendra fry. And the hendra in this tank were going to be my next generation, my next group of captive bred hendra that I would eventually offer to clients later on down the line. They would have been my F3s. And so I figured what better opportunity would be to break the tank down, reset it, remove the channoides, put them in a separate tank, let them spawn, and then allow the hendra to do their thing. Now I just dropped the water level in this tank about 3 inches or so. I'm going to do a 5-gallon water change, and I'm going to get a little closer. We'll talk about some of the details in this tank. It's basically the same thing. It's not no changes. This clay pot is one of the favorite spawning locations for Betta hendra. This could be used for any fish in the Coxina complex and any of your Betta splendens complex fishes. Anything that will produce a bubble nest, you know, that's the right size. This is a pretty small clay pot. Pot's probably about 3.5 inches long. So I would say anything within about 2 inches long or so would probably like to utilize this pot once the water level is a little higher. I use a double air driven filter sponge. Sponges are my favorite way to filter a tank like this. And as you can tell, the moss is doing really well. Over here it's doing awesome, growing above the light. I touched it, it felt pretty warm, so it seems like it's about 90, almost about 85 to 90 degrees at the top of the moss. That was pretty weird. I didn't expect that light itself was producing that type of heat. It's an LED bulb. LED bulbs are not used to or not known for throwing temperatures like that. But for some reason or other, I guess because it's been constantly baking over this moss, the surface of the moss was really warm. That's just your standard Java moss I picked up at different reptile shows, and the last time Nathan and I took a trip to the Killifish Expo, I was able to get some really nice Java moss, and that's what's in this tank now. The Java ferns, I added some Anubias, trying to get a little bit more plant growth. Betta hendra will grow and spawn in tanks without plants, but I will tell you the fry do a lot better in tanks where there's plants, where there's places for them to hide. Hendra do not, and I repeat, do not feed on their fry. Most of the fish in the Coxina complex, if they're healthy and if they're stable and not stressed, they will leave their fry alone. My Betta hendra are pretty much no different. Here you go, here's some small. The glare is probably going to ruin that, but you know, this tank is a dark water tank. You don't really get a chance to see the color of the hendra when they come out. I usually use a flash on my phone, or I'll use a flashlight to actually see the iridescence in the fish themselves. But for the most part, this tank is what I would consider to be your standard peat swamp setup. A little bit more plants than I like to go with, but this setup is now converted over to producing more Betta hendra for the future, for us to offer and for us also to have for ourselves. I originally imported my first pair of Betta hendra 3 years ago, and if you could believe it, I'm pretty sure that pair is still in this tank producing fry. They're nice sized, they're nice and thick, and they're still pretty viable. They will live if they're, you know, basic care and their needs are given. They will live for quite some time as I produce fish well after 3 years of importing the original pair. So stay tuned for more. Wild Betta Fish USA. Follow us on Instagram, Wild Betta Fish USA _. We're also on Twitter, Wild Betta Fish USA. We're also on Pinterest at Wild Betta Fish USA. I have some really cool boards if you're into fish, reptiles, and cars. I'm into a lot of JDM cars, so for all my fans that follow us on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, if you happen to be a JDM fan, go on one of my boards in Pinterest and you'll see some really cool JDM cars. So thank you very much, guys. See you.